Sport Clips Haircuts Help a Hero program funds scholarships for U.S. veterans who are pursuing a college degree or vocational certification. Visit your nearest Sport Clips to learn more and donate now through November 11th.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Subscribe now by going to the Listen tab in the ESPN app.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Here we are. We're back and better than ever. Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And here's the first question. What'd you do with all your extra time last night? A snappy 2 hours and 28 minutes was all it took for the Dodgers to win Game 1 of the World Series on a steamy night. And it was steamy in Southern California. Good morning, Golic.
Good morning. You're not kidding. That game flew by. It was hot, it was quick, and it was interesting. And in the end, it was a Dodger win. And by now, you've obviously seen the stats. 64% of the time, the team that takes Game 1 winds up winning the World Series. But the big story, of course, is Clayton Kershaw. It could be your big story. To me, I was talking with Hembo before the show. And listen, Kershaw was unbelievable.
Yeah.
To see a guy walk up into the batter's box and see his first pitch and swing at his first pitch and rope it out of the park, as Chris Taylor did, was just awesome. I mean, it was absolutely awesome. A leadoff home run on the first pitch Dallas Keuchel threw was out of the park. I thought that was incredible. I know we'll talk about, obviously, Clayton and what he did in the postseason, and that was obviously a monster thing, but man, to be that guy, to be in a World Series and have your first at bat and just absolutely lace a home run on the first pitch was awesome.
Absolutely. And, there were a lot of stories last night.
Yeah.
I say Kershaw not just for the performance last night,
but he deserves the
generally speaking, this reminds me of Randy Johnson, and not because he's a big left-hander with a lot of hair, but because Randy Johnson, and people forget this now, and I think someday maybe we'll forget it with Kershaw too, is that for the longest time, the book on Johnson was that he couldn't pitch in the postseason. He was a big, dominating left-hander in the regular year and won all kinds of Cy Youngs and struck everybody out and everything else. Didn't have numbers quite as good as Kershaw, but awfully close. And no one has numbers as good as Kershaw. But he couldn't get it done in the playoffs. That was the narrative on Randy Johnson for years. And then he changed that by getting it done in the postseason, and that's exactly what Kershaw has done in these playoffs. Obviously, we'll lead with that. Let's go off the top here, Mike, and then we'll go a little more in depth into all of that. But it was the Dodgers taking a 3-1 win and a 1-0 lead in the World Series.
Yeah, these were all home runs. All the scoring, as I mentioned, Taylor hitting a home run, Bregman for the Houston Astros, and then Turner hitting a 2-run shot when it was 1-1. He made it a 3-1 game. Loved the dude's hair and the beard, by the way. Got that in the 6th inning, and then that game just moved along. The Houston Astros did not have a batter at the plate with a runner in scoring position. I mean, that's just mowing them down. I mean, it's just an incredible job out of not only Kershaw, but then he goes 7 innings, but then finishing up as well with the bullpen. Just a very, very efficient night.
Well, the Dodger bullpen has been ridiculously good in this postseason, and so has Justin Verlander, who will do the pitching tonight for the Astros as they try to dig out of this 1-0 hole. And look, Verlander's been as good as you can be in this postseason. He was ridiculously good against the Yankees, and they'll need him to be ridiculously good tonight.
Listen, since joining the Astros, all you need to know, he's 9-0, 1.23 ERA, 67 strikeouts, and 11 walks. I mean, he's been absolute money, and they need him tonight. You know, don't want to fall in that old 2-0-2 hole, so they obviously need him tonight. Keuchel, we saw him struggle in the last series, gave up a couple of home runs, and it was a 1-1 until they gave up that 2-run shot. I think it was in the 7th inning. So it wasn't like he was pitching horribly, but Kershaw was pitching better, and now it's going to rest on Verlander to get him in the series.
What an acquisition. I mean, think about it. You talk about another guy who the narrative changed, and I hope that everyone had a chance to hear Buster Olney in the story that he told us on Verlander after the ALCS, or it might have been after one of his starts, about how Verlander at one point, his velocity was down in the mid-80s, and then he went out behind the dugout one night after he got taken out of a game and just started to cry because he felt like his career was over. He had just lost it. And then he rehabbed it, and he worked his way back, and there he is now throwing in the upper 90s. And they'll need him tonight again if they're going to get back in this World Series. Okay, some basketball. LeBron James played point guard last night in a game against the Bulls. Now, part of this is because of injuries. Derrick Rose is hurt, and we know Isaiah Thomas isn't playing.
Right.
But I've said forever, LeBron James was born to be a point guard. I'd love to see them experiment with this a little bit more.
Well, I mean, he hasn't done it since 2005. He does have 47 starts at point guard. So he has done it before. He's basically played every position out there and scored it. He has 20-point, 10 assists game by starting position. He's done it at every position. He's 20 points, 10 assist games. He's done it one time at shooting guard, 6 at power forward, 6 at point guard, and 141 times at his position as small forward. But it's a guy that we know can play in a position on the court.
That's the thing. I mean, he always does play sort of a modified version of point guard.
Start out wherever
anyway.
he's going to start the game out, and then what it morphs into during the game.
But I do like the idea of just putting the ball in his hands. He can do it. And if you watch any of the game last night, they played the Bulls. It was actually a close game most of the night, and the Bulls are terrible. But he's got the ball in the post, and he's sort of orchestrating from there. And put the ball in his hands and let him do what he wants with it. No one has a better idea of what to do with it than he does. Wizards and Lakers tonight on ESPN, and there's a little bad blood going into this thing. And who else would you expect? It involves LeVar Ball.
Yeah, it does. Who said he was going to be quiet once his son was drafted, and he's been anything but. He's continuing to be a pain in the butt, quite honestly. He shot a video, or in a video, he said, Washington is coming in Wednesday. They better beware because Lonzo ain't losing again this week. It's always great that he singles out Lonzo and doesn't talk about the team at all. So it's either about himself or his son, and never about the team. So Gortat from Washington basically tweeted that his teammate John Wall will torture Lonzo Ball for 48 minutes. And, oh, by the way, John Wall has had incredible success playing against rookies in his career. He's basically doubled them in points and doubled them in assists at this point.
Well, so the hilarious thing then is, so now the Lakers have Lonzo's back. So, like, they are all upset that Gortat tweeted this when Gortat is obviously responding to the father.
To the father. That's exactly right. The guy that said he was going to be quiet and continues to be a mockery. And just go try and run your business, man. I mean, big baller brand, do your thing, man. Go ahead. I mean, it's your business. Do your thing. But you got to do videos like, I mean, it's ridiculous. It is just ridiculous. As I said, I'm not going to criticize the guy about his company and what he's trying to do, how he's trying to market it. I get all that. But about this, I mean, God, just shut up about your kid playing. Or let him go play. I mean, my God, it's unbelievable. It's ridiculous. So now you got this. So now you got, we got to have Lonzo's back because the dad's shooting his mouth off and the other team is obviously going to put a target on his back. My God, it's just idiotic.
The counter-argument to that, and I happen to agree with you 100%, but the counter-argument I see when people say things like that on Twitter is, well, people keep putting cameras in his face. People keep putting microphones in his face. ESPN keeps asking him questions.
That's exactly right.
So he's going to answer. If you don't want to hear, then stop asking him questions.
But he's the one who said, I'm going to be quiet now once my son got drafted. Obviously, he can't even listen to his own words. But you're right.
He had his fingers crossed when he said
it's exactly right. He gets the mic put in his mouth, or put in his face. But you know what? It's him. He's the one that's talking. I'm not blaming the media for this one. Everybody wants to blame the media. God, as I said, I ain't coming on this show. But they want to put a microphone in front of his face. He doesn't have to talk, yet he doesn't know how to shut up.
Off the top.
And finally, Anthony Davis is undergoing an MRI after hurting his knee against Portland. So some concern about him there. I don't think that they think it's going to be something terrible, but anytime you hear anything like this, because this is a guy who's had significant knee problems before that have cost him a lot of games.
Yeah, since his first season in 2012-13 season, he's missed 75 games, so we'll see what this one leads to as far as missing games. Luckily, the MRI was negative, but he is a guy that's, been nicked occasionally, obviously, in missing those games and then going forward.
And that is Off the Top with Mike and Mike. Right now at Lowe's, you can save on the supplies you need most from the brands you trust to help get the job done on time and on budget. Visit lowesforpros.com for details. So there's two major storylines, I think, coming out. Well, more than that, because you've got the weather, which was hilarious, and then you've got the time of the game. The 2 hours and 28 minutes is the fastest World Series game since 1992. That's
incredible.
A remarkably long time, 25 years since the last time they had a World Series game played this quickly. But I actually went and looked it up. Do you know what the fastest World Series game ever was?
No.
The fastest. What do you think the chances are that these two teams will break the record for the shortest World Series game?
None.
I would agree with you completely. The shortest World Series game was played between the Cleveland Indians and the Boston Braves in 1948. Johnny Sain, Spawn Sain and Pray for Rain, and Steve Gromek did the pitching. They both went the complete distance in Game 4. It lasted 1 hour and 31 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, we have an hour and 31 minutes worth of commercials.
So an hour less. This game was
2:28.
So basically an hour less.
57 minutes faster.
Holy smoke.
Than last night's game was. So it's not going to break that. But one way or another, so those are all the kind of peripheral storylines. But the real storyline going into this is that you have a pitcher in Clayton Kershaw whose numbers would suggest that if you wanted to make an argument that he's the greatest pitcher of all time, you could. His numbers compare favorably with, you want to use the modern era guys, Clemens, Randy Johnson, Pedro, whoever you want. You want to go back to Sandy Koufax and the compact brilliance that he had. You want to go back farther than that through the history of the game. But we live in such a postseason era now where we have that in mind that I think most people's perception of him is, yeah, that's the guy who's really good, but he can't get it done in the playoffs. Well, he has completely changing that narrative right in front of our eyes.
Well, he is, and you'll have to. But people aren't going to be satisfied till they have the ring, and he gets at least two of the wins in it, if not three, because Dave Roberts said he wasn't going to throw him on short rest in Game 4.
He's not going to pitch Game 4.
Only threw 83 pitches though as well, but he's not going to pitch Game 4. So let's see where they are. I was going to say let's see where the series is at that point and that decision. But I'm with you. I understand what you're saying, but we are. Listen, this was the narrative of Peyton Manning, right? Before Peyton Manning finally won his first Super Bowl. Great regular season stats. Can't get it done in the postseason. Finally did against the Bears. Got as a Colt, now got it, and then got it done as a Bronco. But we know that was kind of a different scenario. But that was a book on him for the longest time. You'd recognize him as one of the great quarterbacks, but it's like, you can't get it done in the postseason. Now there are those like Dan Marino that have done that as well and still considered some of the greatest. So Kershaw isn't going to be completely dismissed. But boy, how it can elevate what you do if you get it done in the postseason.
Randy Johnson, the guy that I compared him to off the top of the show, lost 7 consecutive starts in the playoffs from 95 to 2001, the longest streak of its kind at the time, and then he completely rewrote all of that in the 2001 World Series as a Diamondback, winning 2 games as a starter and then 1 more as a reliever. So here's Clayton Kershaw. Again, so far in this postseason, the Dodgers have won all 3 of his starts, and they have won 8 of Kershaw's last 9 postseason starts in total. So he has been sensational, and here was Kershaw last night on the advantage he felt against the Astros, since none of them, or almost none, had ever seen him before.
Anytime a pitcher hasn't faced a hitter, I feel like the pitcher has the advantage, and then the more times a hitter sees somebody, the more the advantage goes to the hitter. So with Dallas tonight and myself, there's a lot of guys that we haven't faced in each other's lineups, and that can only help the pitcher at that point. Once they start seeing you, I'm sure, they're going to have a different, not necessarily different, but they're going to have seen me now in Game 5. So it's going to be, there's going to be some adjustments to be made, just like our hitters. We've seen Keuchel now. He threw the ball well tonight. So we're going to have to make some adjustments, and it can only help those hitters if you ask them to see a guy.
Again, Kershaw became the first pitcher all season to strike out 11 Astros in a game. And I'll say it again because the Astros didn't have a single at-bat with runners in scoring position. And nothing. Because after Kershaw threw, 2 relievers came in through an inning each, didn't give up a hit. It was just it was very impressive, and obviously showed in the time of the game as well. Because I said on the other side, Keuchel wasn't awful by any stretch. It's a 1-1 game. He gives up a leadoff home run. He did give up 6 hits, but then he gives up that 2-run shot, where he ends up coming out of the game. So that's a big one there. But another reason I should say, the game moved along pretty quickly.
Yeah, I misspoke. Kershaw, they've won all 4 of his starts this playoffs, not just 3. He started 4 games so far in these playoffs, and they've won them all. And again, they've won now 8 of his last 9 postseason starts. And then there's Justin Turner, who is becoming a folk hero in these playoffs for the Dodgers, and he had the big blast last night. And there's an interesting little moment. You, of all people, are going to like this if you haven't heard this soundbite yet. And you will hear him explain it. He got beat the first 2 times he went up last night, so he made one very significant adjustment in his 3rd at-bat, and it wound up changing the game.
My first 2 at-bats, I was swinging a little bit bigger bat, a 34.5, and I got beat in a couple times, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go and switch back to my 33.5 that I normally use, a little smaller bat, and good thing I did, because I didn't get beat in the 3rd time.
It's impressive. Listen,
he most certainly did not.
You make adjustments. You just the lighter bat, the smaller bat, and get around on it, and he certainly did. to the tune of a 2-run shot, 3-1 lead, and that ended up being the ball game. But, that's what you do. You make adjustments. Whether it's before the game, you get your game plan, or in-game, you make in-game adjustments.
Justin Turner is putting up ridiculous numbers. So we are asked by our friends at Sport Clips to pick an MVP moment of the week. You can help fund scholarships for U.S. veterans. Donate to the Help a Hero program at a Sport Clips near you. Well, how about this for an MVP moment of the week? From Justin Turner, there are 310 hitters who have had at least 100 career plate appearances in the postseason, okay? In the whole history of the sport, 310 guys have batted at least 100 times in the playoffs. There are only 2 of them who have a higher OPS than Justin Turner, and those 2 are Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth. It's Lou Gehrig, Babe Ruth, and Justin Turner in that order for the highest OPS in the history of Major League Baseball's postseason.
That's one of those, you take a snapshot of it right now. Isn't that what Lee Corso did when he was coaching at Indiana?
Yes.
They were beating, what was it, Florida?
Ohio State. They had a 7-0 lead at the end of the first quarter. He gathered his team on the field and took a picture of
with
the scoreboard
behind it. It's just awesome.
And then they lost.
Yeah.
And so we'll see.
That's what he needs to do, take a snapshot of that list.
Listen, Justin Turner, you can't be playing any better than he's playing. So obviously our coverage of the World Series will continue all morning long here. We'll have Eduardo Perez in our studio in about 15 minutes with all of his thoughts on what we saw last night in Game 1, looking ahead to Game 2 and the rest of the way. I do want to try and get some more in this morning as well. So to me, the next most interesting thing of the day yesterday was the Martavis Bryant story. Yep. If you were with us in the final hour of our show yesterday, that's when Josina Anderson started posting the quotes from her telephone conversation with Martavis Bryant, in which he very directly, and we read them all to you yesterday, and by now you've probably seen them, where he just basically said, look, I got to get out of here. I mean, if I'm not going to be more a part of this offense in Pittsburgh, I've got to get out. And when you consider the history that is there with his suspension for the year last year and everything else, and you consider that it's a team with Antonio Brown and a team with Le'Veon Bell, there were a lot of people. Louis Riddick was in our studio when I was reading those quotes, and he was rolling his eyes. Candidly, he was rolling them at me as I was reading them, and I was like, dude,
I'm just a messenger
I'm
here.
just reading the quotes here. So I was very curious to hear what Mike Tomlin would say in response. I assume by now, Mike, you've heard what Mike Tomlin said in response. We'll let him respond, then we'll let Golic do it. Here was Mike Tomlin with his very direct thoughts.
We'll move forward. He's a good guy to work with in the building and has been. We've been very clear about this process of getting reacclimated to us. Not an easy one, but he's worked diligently. I like his approach. But he says some things when he's not around us that are somewhat of a distraction. And I say somewhat because we're having to field questions regarding it, not because it's high on my agenda.
Yeah, when we talk about somewhat of a distraction, because I've always said, listen, the distraction part of it is having to answer questions. If this shouldn't interrupt your lifting session, your film session, your walkthrough, or your practice, but when you have to answer questions about it, it's something you shouldn't have to answer questions about. And he has to, and teammates will be asked as well. Listen, Lewis and I both said it yesterday. This isn't the way you go about it. But we're in an era, certainly like in basketball, where players can control so much now. So a player can kind of control where he goes or how he goes about his business. But this one, I just, supposedly he was not all that ecstatic when Juju Smith-Schuster was drafted in the second round. And I sit there and say to myself, dude, you brought it on yourself. You weren't around last year. Would you expect them to just wait for you? I mean, you had to stay off the practice field for a while earlier on this year until you were granted the opportunity to go, okay, now you can go practice and play. You couldn't be counted on. So they went and got another wide receiver. Now, that said, the dude can catch the ball. I do think he is a good receiver. For some reason, it's not happening now in this offense. And obviously, if you hear the extended talk of Tomlin, he didn't go, as I've always said, if you're going to talk, I hate when you talk publicly about it. And what he's doing now is ridiculous because it's outside the building, on the social media things. But I've always said, if you're going to go do that, which I don't like, I hope you've talked in-house to people. And he obviously hasn't, because Mike Tomlin mentioned more than a few times that they haven't spoken, but they will, and then he will rain down his discipline, as they said, or rain down his decision, I think was the line that Mike Tomlin used when they do speak. So he is handling this poorly. And I don't know where it's going to lead. Listen, if it leads to him being gone, he'll have got exactly what he wants. So he'll have said, you know what, everything I did was for a reason if I'm free from here and can go somewhere else. But I don't know where it's going to go. If you ask me, I don't think that's going to happen. I think more will happen before that would happen as far as inactives or other things like that if he keeps up with the act that he's going on with right now.
Yeah, I mean, making him inactive isn't really serving any obvious purpose. The one
it's
thing
a punishment.
I'd say is
that's all it is.
You had Antonio Brown like flipping over the Gatorade thing on the sideline, and the next thing you know, I mean, Ben spent the entire next week, if you watch that next game, force-feeding every single ball in his direction. Yep. So if you're Martavis Bryant, you see that, and you're like, okay, well, the squeaky wheel gets the grease around here, and I get it. Antonio Brown is a better player than Martavis Bryant.
That's also understanding the pecking order as well.
I get it. I understand that, but I think Martavis Bryant views himself as a better player than he thinks the Steelers are allowing him to be. And maybe he is. And I'm not excusing what he's doing. Maybe he's not going about it the right way, but the reality is this is a guy who was a fourth-round pick. He's making $615,000. He sees what guys who get the ball thrown to them a lot more than he does are getting paid, and he's saying, look, I got to get out there. I got to go someplace they're going to throw me the ball. And if it isn't going to be here, then I got to go somewhere else. Now, should he be saying it to Josina? Probably not. And does the fact that he was suspended last year play into all of this in a million different ways? Yeah, it obviously does. Yeah. But taken just purely as the frustration of I've become the number 3 option, and at absolute best if you want to include Bell, the number 4 option in this offense, and at best number 3 when I think I'm good enough to be number 1 in a lot of different places, and the difference in that is like $30 or $40 million. I understand that. I understand his wanting to get out of there.
I understand his frustration. Then there's the process to go through.
How you go about it. Now, again, I don't know exactly how he could better do it. I guess anything would be better than this. But if he really wants out of there, how do you get out of there? Like, how do you get yourself out of there?
The first thing you do is have a normal conversation with your coach. I think it would start there about your frustrations and going from there. And to me, you're better apt of getting something that's more along the lines of what you want if you go about the process. But that being said, we just saw in basketball, I want out, could mean I want out of I don't want to be here, the hair salon or Phoenix, and Eric Bledsoe's not going to play in Phoenix anymore. So to your point, you're right. Maybe guys think the more I complain about something, especially on social media, hey, I didn't do it in the building, did it in my own time. I'm not doing it when the reporters are here. So I don't know. Maybe that's the way of today. I just can't. I personally can't stand it.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Here we are, and busy we are on a Wednesday morning. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Terrific hour on the way on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Gruden and Herbie back-to-back. Plenty of football to talk about. Football, pro, and then college.
Yes, college. And Herbie, I got a bone to pick with.
Yeah, you're going to get at it with Herbie finally. Mm-hmm. And, of course, the World Series last night. Clayton Kershaw, sensational. Dallas Keuchel made 2 big mistakes, and the Dodgers made him pay. And the Dodgers take a 3-1 win and a 1-0 series lead in 2 hours and 28 minutes.
2 mistakes by Keuchel, 2 home runs, 1 mistake by Kershaw. You had good pitching going on. Rich Hill tonight against Verlander. We just had Eduardo Perez in here who thought Hill would go maybe 4 to 5 innings, if that was the expectation, or he thinks it would be, then get to the bullpen. Bullpen had two guys throw last night, 6 up, 6 down. And how about this? The Dodgers bullpen in the last 7 games, 23 innings, no runs allowed, 27 strikeouts, and 1 walk. They've been ridiculous. Yep. So if you use them a little bit more tonight, then you got the travel day, the day off, to get them refreshed a little bit, and onward you go. So we'll see. If
you take a 2-0 lead with you on the road as well, obviously you feel ridiculously good about yourself if you've gotten through Keuchel and Verlander, and Verlander, who has been one of the great midseason trade acquisitions ever. I mean, that conversation can begin a little bit here, too, about the great pickups that we've ever seen at the trade deadline. They don't beat the Yankees without him. There's no way in the world they get through that series without Verlander being every bit as good as he was. And now it certainly feels like they're going to need him again if they're going to have a chance to win the World Series. And then the other thing, just quickly, for those of you watching on ESPN2, you saw it. They're running all of these Mike and Mike memories, flashback moments. Throwbacks, and they just showed the one where one of our bracket wagers, you had to have your legs and arms waxed.
Yes, I did.
And it was really fun. And it's fun to watch these. Well, it was fun watching it 8 years later.
Yeah.
But among the many things that strike me, we've been doing this so long, is just how different we look. I mean, looking at myself in that thing, I wonder any number of things. One is, what was I thinking with my hair? Two, what the heck was I wearing?
Yeah.
And three, I mean, watching you lying there as fat as you were getting your legs waxed was just hilarious.
I think the two things we've learned over the years is, A, that I was very fluffy and have lost a lot of weight. And you, no matter when we show a picture, whether it's 2000 when this started or now, your hair is the exact same color.
It's the same color.
And you color it. So when did you
God
start coloring your hair?
is my witness.
Yeah.
I have not colored my hair once.
Whatever.
Not once.
Whatever.
That is my original hair color. They're showing it on TV right now.
The styles have changed.
Send me this picture. Send me this with the split screen. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I look like two different people.
The hairstyles have changed. The color has not.
Has not changed.
Things that make you go,
as God is my witness,
whatever.
I have not changed a thing. Jon Gruden is right now watching a lot of tape of Tyreek Hill because we have Broncos and Chiefs coming up this coming Monday in a really interesting AFC West matchup. We'll get to that in a moment. But, John, I want to start with the game you guys had this past weekend, the NFC East matchup between Carson Wentz and your brother's team in Washington. And Wentz was just spectacular. So I'm really – we spent basically 4 hours yesterday talking about Carson Wentz. Let's get it from you here, as now you've had a chance to sort of digest what you saw and everything you've seen from him in his second year. What are we seeing right now in the Eagles' young quarterback?
Well, you're seeing it all. And, when you watch him practice, when you're around him, perhaps the greatness is some of the things you don't see is his presence. He has a presence in the building. He has a presence on the practice field, and he's got a sincere approach with his teammates. He has a real care about everybody on the team getting better. There's a lot of sincere enthusiasm, cheerleading, rallying going on from him behind the scenes. He's hard-nosed. He brings it, Mike, every week, every day, every down, and he's been well coached. They've upgraded the supporting cast. I think you really got to go back and take a look at Howie Roseman, the general manager. I don't think it's been brought up. I don't think we did probably a good enough job giving Howie Roseman credit for getting Carson Wentz. Remember, Philadelphia had the 13th pick in the draft. They traded up to number 8 with Miami, and then they traded up to get this man. I don't know how they did it. And I know the Washington Redskins, the Cowboys, and the New York Giants are probably upset with Cleveland for letting Philly go up and get this guy.
Yeah, I would say so. I think there.
So are the fans in Cleveland, but that's neither here nor there.
Cleveland every day. So we deal with injuries all the time, John, and certainly the marquee one this year of many injuries had been Aaron Rodgers, but we saw Joe Thomas go down in that streak stop we just saw. And then in your game, not only Brandon Sheriff, the right guard for Washington, who's a Pro Bowler, an excellent young guy, but an older guy, and Jason Peters go down, the left tackle for the Eagles. We saw that team without Lane Johnson last year at right tackle for suspension, and that line started to struggle. What are the expectations? Talk about it from the O-line aspect when you lose a guy like that, the changes that occur. Can it change X's and O's wise? Do you have to give the next, if it's Lane Johnson over there, more help? How do that adjustments go?
Well, it's the blind side of your quarterback, and as you know, whoever they put up there is going to have to block a marquee pass rusher in critical situations for the rest of the season. And I don't know if they're going to make a two-position switch or not. Will they move Lane Johnson over there? Perhaps. I think he was selected number 4 overall in the draft to be the long-term answer at left tackle. But now you're talking about a two-position switch, and sometimes that's unhealthy at mid-season. But they're going to need to chip. They're going to need to do a lot of things to try to obviously help that left tackle, changing the launching spot, throwing the quick game. But that's what Doug Peterson does extremely well, and they're going to have to rally around whoever that is. But there are a couple options with Lane Johnson potentially moving over or just staying with Vaitai.
Mike, Jon Gruden is with us. So that was last week's game. We'll get to this week's game. Another of the big topics that we're talking about today is the situation with Martavis Bryant in Pittsburgh. And it's multi-layered. But my basic question to you is this, John, because before you were a head coach, you were an offensive coach, and so you've dealt with all of this before. You've got a guy, and we can take the particulars out of it, who isn't nearly as big a part of the offense as he wants to be. He's a very talented player, but you've got superstars on that offense. You've got Antonio Brown out there, and you've got Le'Veon Bell behind you. So he's not as much a part of the offense as he wants to be, and he's complaining about it noticeably. He's doing it publicly, which may be a terrible idea, but that's neither here nor there. But when a guy just comes to you and says, hey, coach, I need the ball more. I need to be more a part of what's going on here. I'm capable of giving so much more. I want to be more a part of what we're doing. How is that handled inside the building?
Well, it's handled differently depending on who it is and where you are. I have had a lot of receivers yell at me and come to me and ask me to get them more and more involved. And you just have to keep selling the team aspect, the length of the season. You know, Bryant has had a lot of issues. And in his young career, let's be honest, he's had a lot of problems off the field. I'm sure there's a lot of frustration. And Schuster has played extremely well. And he's not the go-to guy, and he won't be as long as Antonio Brown is still in Pittsburgh. But they need him. He, I think, single-handedly helped them beat the Minnesota Vikings earlier this season. You just got to learn to be patient. Sometimes these young receivers want it all right away. And I know Mike Tomlin extremely well. He's very good behind the scenes with players. He's managed through a lot of tough situations in his career, and just try not to make a bigger deal about this than it is. This isn't the first or the last player that wants the ball at the wide receiver position.
Boy, that's for sure. Yeah, no doubt about
exactly
that.
Right.
And I agree with you. I think he'll be enough of a piece to that puzzle that they're not going to want to get rid of him, even though he's not happy, that he can have a few catches here and there that are going to be big for that team that's looking pretty good in the AFC. Let's go to a team in the NFC that's not looking as good. And some people always call it, is it the Super Bowl hangover? What is it? They have a lot of the same personnel. But the Atlanta Falcons, I mean, just don't look like they did certainly last year. Can you put your finger on anything with that team on why it seems so different? A lot of people point at Sarkisian, the offensive coordinator, but he doesn't execute the plays on the field. How is that marriage?
Well, it's obviously a stressful situation right now. And, you know, when you make a change on the coaching staff, sometimes it impacts the product on the field, and sometimes there's an adjustment period. They've had some injuries at wide receiver. Let's not forget that. Julio Jones has missed some time. Don't know if he's 100%. Mohamed Sanu, a big piece of this puzzle, has been injured. I don't think their offensive line has come off the ball and blocked and created holes in the running game consistently like they did in years past. And they just have not been able to put teams away, Mike. They have jumped on some teams. They've gotten some leads early, and then they've fallen apart in the second half. For whatever reason, they've turned the ball over. Matt Ryan has thrown some uncharacteristic interceptions, and they haven't made the third down critical plays. But I still think they're extremely dangerous, and they need a little help from their defense as well. But they're a force. They're still in the mix. There's a lot of football yet to be played, and this NFC South is always going to be a division. It comes down to the last couple weeks.
Jon Gruden's with us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. This week, you guys have the big one in the AFC West, the Broncos and the Chiefs. Let's start with Denver. You know, I'm rooting like crazy for Trevor Siemian from Northwestern, but even I would have to acknowledge that right now, clearly, he is struggling and their offense is struggling. What is on the tape?
You know, I'm watching this San Diego game, and Joey Bosa single-handedly ruined the game. Joey Bosa dominated the Denver Broncos offensive line. They have real issues at right tackle. Barber struggled against the Chargers. Then Menelik Watson couldn't handle JPP. A lot of problems at right tackle right now. They got a rookie at left tackle. And San Diego quietly, by the way, is a really good defensive team, but they're having a hard time blocking running plays, pass protection. Siemian is under fire. They're missing Sanders and outstanding receivers. I just don't feel the firepower that I once felt in Denver. They're really having a hard time getting this running game going. It's hard to watch offensive film right now, and unfortunately for them, their defense has been playing extremely well. They have wasted some great performances.
Do you think Siemian is on a short leash at all for this with this offense?
I don't know where they go, Mike. I saw Brock Osweiler come in against, the New York Giants when Siemian was injured. That's not going to help this matter. Paxton Lynch has missed 6 or 7 weeks. He's been injured. He played poorly in the preseason. They have to stay with Siemian, in my opinion, and find a way to get on track offensively. They just don't have any rhythm. They're not converting on third down. I think it's around 25%. And other than Demaryius Thomas, there's just not a lot of weapons that have consistently showed up.
And then on the other side, your former colleague there, Andy Reid, doing his game as he coaches the Kansas City Chiefs, who have lost a couple in a row. They were the last undefeated team, drop a couple in a row. How does Andy, knowing him as well as you do, how does he regroup over there?
I think they believe they should be 7-0, Mike. They lost the Pittsburgh game. You saw the catch at Antonio Brown made. It bounced off one of the Chiefs' defenders' helmets. It was a magnificent catch, but they had a chance to win the Pittsburgh game, and certainly the Raider game came down to the last few plays and one of the most bizarre finishes I've ever seen. But they're playing good football. They need to get Marcus Peters going at the cornerback position. They gave up way too many yards in the passing game. And they need to get some healthy pass rushers back. Dee Ford, is Tom Bahali going to play? They need to get Justin Houston some help. But I still think the Chiefs are a very good team. This is going to be an unbelievable atmosphere and a must-win situation for Kansas City and Denver, two teams that really don't have much like for each other.
Yeah, big game in what we figure to be a very tight division. It's this coming Monday night. The Broncos and the Chiefs, and Jon Gruden and company will be there. Thank you, John. Enjoy. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, John.
All right, guys, have a good one.
Jon Gruden with us every Wednesday here. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Customers who switch to Progressive save an average of $500. Call or click today and find out if they could save you hundreds on your car insurance. And I'll admit it again, I'm hopelessly biased on the subject of Trevor Siemian. I will not try and hide it. He's the first starting quarterback we've had since Otto Graham coming out of Northwestern. I want to see it go well. And I'm not making excuses, but, I mean, they have a lot of problems there. It's not just the quarterback.
They do, but you know how it works. You know, the quarterback is the one that gets changed, especially if the quarterback's not lighting it up. But to John's point, and he's right, where are you going? You know, there's not a whole lot to go to that you feel pretty secure about. But they do have struggles, just what he said. That offensive line with injuries and bad play is not done well. They're not protecting him that well at all. So that's what I thought. Sometimes you look for that spark, but I don't think you're going to Brock Osweiler for the spark.
And then going back to the Martavis Bryant thing,
yep.
I get it. For the purposes of trying to make his case, I wish he didn't have the issues in the past that he has with suspension, because they ruin almost everything I want to say.
Well, they do, and they're there. So,
I know that, but they don't have to play into this. I would rather have this be receiver X, okay? You're a young, talented receiver, and you're on a team that has, let's say, the most productive receiver maybe ever. I mean, Antonio Brown has had, you could probably put together a stat for me, Hembo, that would suggest that Antonio Brown has had the 3 most productive seasons consecutively in the whole history of the sport, right up there near the top. And then you've got Le'Veon Bell, who is the prototype running back of today, where he doesn't just run the ball, which he did last week, 30-something time. What do you have, 35 carries last week or something like that? But they also throw him the ball a lot. So this is a guy who's like, listen, I'm a really good player, and no one's ever going to know it, and I'm going to get to the end of my first deal, and I'm not going to have had the opportunity to show the whole world what I'm capable of.
Okay, join the club of a lot of players. So what now?
But now you have, I think players have the mentality that it used to be, well, there's nothing I can do about that. Right. And now I think the players have the mentality of, I got to get me to a place that I can do that. So I'm just reading this tweet here. Eric Deverick tweets, the Steelers should teach Martavis about karma and trade him to the Browns. I think he'd love to be traded to the Browns.
He would absolutely love to. How about this? You know what? Go and make your case. And you know what Mike Tomlin's going to say? Martavis, listen, you're a piece of this puzzle. We're a good team. We have big goals right now. You're not going to catch as many balls as Antonio Brown. You're not. Right now, as I said, he's the 3rd most targeted guy, but that's slipping. I get it. You know, behind Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. Schuster is starting to come into this offense a little bit more. I'm not trading him. I mean, when you're looking to where you want to go, and this guy has the big play capability, and he can give you maybe a couple of those a game, if maybe, sometimes not, sometimes more. Early in the season, he was giving you more. Why am I trading that?
Oh, I understand that.
So he can have all the attitude he wants. As I said, join the club. There are hundreds of players who are not seeing the playing time that they think they deserve, and who are coming to the end of their contract, who think I could be better off somewhere else. Hundreds, right? Every single year.
But so would you blame them for wanting to go to a different situation?
I'm sure in a private moment, maybe talking with their girlfriend or their wife or their family, maybe that's exactly what they're saying. But then, okay, now what? What do? You go on social media and say you want to leave? You start doing that? Is that what you do? I mean, I don't know. Is that the thing of today? You can go have a discussion, about me being more part of an offense or a defense, depending on the player. But at the end of the day, you can walk out and say, you know what, I don't want to play here anymore and leave. Okay, and you don't get a paycheck. You can make yourself a pain in the butt to where they can make you inactive, where you still get paid, but you're not playing. Now you're not doing anything. Or if it gets bad enough, you get suspended. If you're being too much of a distraction, then you're not getting paid. I don't know where you want to. I get your point, and I'm telling you, there are hundreds of players a year that think that. And they all don't go on social media and say, I want to get out. So what's right, what's wrong? I don't know. I don't think this is the right way. But in this day and age, who knows? I don't know. But I don't think it's going to get him traded because he still is a viable option, even if it's less times for a team. Trade him away, then Schuster gets hurt.
No, they're not going to trade him.
He's not getting traded.
I understand that.
So he's not alone. He's not singled out of the 1,700 NFL players as, my God, he's the one guy that's being persecuted right now. Let him go somewhere.
He's also not going to get the $30, $40 million guaranteed, and that goes back to the thing that I started by saying that Lewis said it yesterday, can we depend on you? He has not shown himself to be a person that you can depend upon. You can parse the marijuana suspension however you want. You can say you don't believe it should be illegal. You can say you don't believe that the league should test for it. But whatever it is,
they do.
The only thing that matters if you're a team and you're thinking of giving a guy that contract is, can we depend upon you being there every single game?
He's out for a year again.
Because Antonio Brown, whatever headaches he creates, and whether it's Facebook Lives in the locker room or whether it's turning over Gatorade things, he and Marvin Harrison are the only players in history with 100 catches in 4 straight years, and he's on pace for 118 this year. So he's dependable.
Yes, he is.
He can be a pain in the neck, but he is as dependable as it gets.
You can say, man, is a pain in the neck, but let's throw him the ball.
Yeah.
And that's how it's worked forever. In sports, the better you are, the more leash you get. I've said it for years, and I'll continue to say it because it's true.
I guess what I'd ask is, how good is Martavis Bryant?
I think he's a pretty good receiver, good enough to where the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't going to trade him.
I guess my answer to it would be, I don't really know. No one really knows because he's always been the other guy on the field.
But we've seen him play. I think he's pretty good.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
But how much of that is because the defense is rolling that way? And could Martavis Bryant be the number one receiver on an NFL team? Because if you are the number one receiver on an NFL team, that is worth tens of millions of dollars.
Right.
And right now, the way it's trending, he's never going to get that chance. He will never be that. He will never get that money.
So I understand his frustration. Drafted in 2014. Right. He doesn't have to wait much longer.
But who's going to give him that money if he's a guy who's coming off a season where he had 31 catches? Do you know what I mean? Like, he wants to go to a place where he'll have 91 catches, and then all of a sudden he's worth a lot of money.
Stand in line.
I get that. Line. You're not wrong. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what answer you're looking for from me.
I'm not looking for an answer.
I mean, I don't know what.
I'm trying to say, all these people, I'm looking at a ton of Twitter. This guy needs to shut up and do it for the team. Well, the team not going to do it for him. These teams aren't going to sit around saying, when he gets to the end of his deal, you know what, Martavis, you really are a better player than we needed. So we're going to give you a little more money than your numbers would suggest because we had Antonio. No, they're not going to do that. They're going to say, these are your numbers, so we're giving you this amount of money. So I understand a guy in his situation feeling a little bit of desperation. That's all I'm saying. Is he handling it wrong? Probably. But I understand.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
And
is he the only guy in that situation? Obviously
as I said,
not.
Multiply it by a couple hundred. So it happens all the time. Hey, everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Computer, execute 12.4p operation.
Optimizing algorithm. Running encryption packet alpha. Night. Oh, I don't feel so good.
What is it, computer?
Is it hot in here? It feels hot in here. I feel a little clammy. I should lie down or something.
A computer with a virus? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
Those oysters Rockefeller were a mistake.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
All right, I've been dreading this all week long since you have decided to make it your personal quest to make Kirk Herbstreit feel unwelcome here.
It's his fault.
So go ahead, set it up as we welcome Kirk Herbstreit in for his regular Wednesday visit. What is your beef with Herbie?
Last week, College Game Day went to Penn State. Penn State and Michigan was playing, but it was also Notre Dame USC as ranked against ranked. And I kind of understood. They were higher-ranked teams with Penn State and Michigan, so I somewhat understood that, even though going to Notre Dame for Notre Dame SC is tough to beat. So be it. So Notre Dame rolls USC, Penn State rolls Michigan. Now Penn State's going to Ohio State. College Game Day's already been there, and they just did Penn State. Notre Dame's playing a ranked North Carolina State team who they play Notre Dame and then Clemson can get right into this thing. What a great time for College Game Day to go to Notre Dame for that one. But Herbie has to step in and say he demanded. I found out behind the scenes he demanded College Game Day go to Ohio State and do the Ohio State-Penn State game, which left Notre Dame out in the cold, which, again, leaves me out as celebrity picker if they would have chosen me because Herbie wanted the game day at Ohio State.
Herbie, your response.
Wow. You are a beauty. Now, I will admit it would have been a lot of fun last week anytime Notre Dame and SC get together. What a terrific atmosphere. Congratulations on a huge win. Game day went to Penn State with the whiteout and lived up to it. This week, you have me confused with Lee Fitting, I think, because I have absolutely zero pull on where College Game Day goes. I don't know who your source is. But I go where I'm told, like most of us. But I would love to go to South Bend. In fact, if we went to South Bend, let's just envision this, because if we went to South Bend this week, I would love to be able to have our set there. It's been so long. And I would love to be able to have Mike Golic on our set as our celebrity picker. And I would ask him, Mike Golic, who do you like in the Notre Dame North Carolina State game? That's all I'd want to know.
It would be so much fun to do.
Well, let's do that. Why don't we do that? Let's have Mike Golic pick the Notre Dame NC State game. Let's do that right now. Let's have the Mike Golic everyone really wants to hear from answer that question. Mike Golic, what do you think?
Notre Dame by 20. Okay, let's move on.
Stand by. You're not the Mike Golic we're talking about. Go ahead.
So,
what is that?
Now they wanted the Mike Golic that they wanted on the game day set, the one that was actually there playing the last time game day was on South Bend's campus, the one that was actually around during the years that people like to bring back up and talk about when they reminisce fondly about things that went on in South Bend. The bright shining star bursting his way onto the network right here. So, Herbie, happy to come out here and give you a pick, man. Really appreciate you bringing me on to do this. It means a lot.
What? This is the Mike Golic we would have on the set if College Game Day showed up in South Bend. If we eventually get there, hopefully we'll get there soon, and we would love to have you on the show and give us your thoughts on not just Notre Dame's game, but all the other games that particular Saturday as well.
How do you feel, big fella?
I can't even begin to tell you the amount of people I hate right now. I hate Herbie, and I brought this kid into the world, and I'm about to take him out. There's one standing next to me right here. This is ridiculous what's going on. And by the way, Lee Fitting gave you up because I had him up against the wall ready to punch him in the throat, and he said it was your idea. So, I'm not like I threatened him or anything. I can't believe my own son, you would come in and sell me out like this.
You know what? Listen, to quote the great Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend. I bring this one in to make the pick right here.
Oh,
so
nice.
Make it very easy. So I would simply, let me show you how to do this, just in case, one day down the road, once I get past it, you take the helmet, you take whichever team you're going to choose would be at Notre Dame, and you'd put that one on. And for us, we get a little bit of this action in here. Last weekend, could I toss one of these down? But, I'll experience it for you. I'll tell you how it is. I'll write it down in your journal. I'll send that home with you. It'd be nice.
Oh, shut up.
All right, let's do Herbie here. And we have a few minutes with him. And then, Mikey, if you can stay, we'll talk to you a little bit as well. But, Herbie, while we do have you, obviously, all kidding aside, and it was nice of you to be in our little gag here, you guys are going to Penn State, Ohio State for College Game Day, which is a huge game in the Big Ten. The winner, what did we say? They have a 97% chance, according to FPI, of taking it to the Big Ten title game where we would expect Wisconsin to be sitting on the other side. So break this matchup down a little bit for us, Herbie, because it's a fascinating one. Saquon on one side, I heard Urban Meyer waxing rhapsodic about him. How do you see this game?
Man, just leaving State College last week, and I just watching Penn State a couple times in person. I had the Iowa game on the road where they got challenged, and then last week. This is a really, really good football team that's incredibly mature and focused.
I think that the one thing to remember about this game is not just Saquon Barkley in the Penn State offense. I think Trace McSorley, their quarterback, reminded us last week how important he is to this offense because of his ability to throw the ball downfield. They create so many one-on-one matchups. And then, of course, his ability to complement Saquon Barkley running the football. If you get so caught up, as Michigan learned last week, and taking him away, McSorley will make you pay for it with his feet. So Ohio State, I think the one way Ohio State will try to neutralize all that big playability is got to be their defensive line. Their defensive line's ability to penetrate and get into the backfield could be kind of an equalizer. And like I said, with the home crowd, if Ohio State wins the game, and we talk next week, we're going to be talking a lot about Nick Bosa and the Ohio State defensive line doing that very thing. And on the other side, we just don't know how much Ohio State's improved, guys. They've had better looks in practice than who they played in the last 5 weeks. So they've done what they needed to do against Army and UNLV and Rutgers and whoever else. But let's be honest, the last time we saw them against a good athletic defense was Oklahoma. And some of the same issues they had a year ago with J.T. Barrett holding the ball, receivers not making plays, getting separation, offensive line having problems protecting the quarterback, were on display in that game. So here they go 5 weeks later after going against inferior opponents and looking great. How much have they really improved? It's guessing and speculating. We have no idea until we see them play in this game against a very athletic defense. It's one of the top defenses in the country.
Mike and Herbie, brought to you by Allstate. Make sure you check out the Herbstreit and Fitzsimmons podcast this week. They have J.T. Barrett and Bryce Love.
So certainly after all the fun we're having about the Notre Dame, I'll certainly talk about them throughout the rest of the week. But they're playing a North Carolina State team, Herbie, who their quarterback Finley, 11 touchdowns, no interceptions. They split up that run and pass pretty well. They beat Notre Dame in the monsoon going on last year. But what an opportunity for them. Let's talk about it from their side of it. They play Notre Dame and then they play Clemson. So within a 2-week span, if they can survive that, do you feel they put themselves right in the mix?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is a huge opportunity. What a great story with Dave Doran, their head coach. Was a former defense coordinator years ago with Brett Bielema, head coach of Northern Illinois. Brings that kind of Midwest toughness to this NC State program. It's been building it over the last few years, and now they're kind of reaping the rewards of that kind of foundation that he's been able to lay, and they've had some nice wins. Let's be honest, this is going to be a much different test. I think Notre Dame is a team with their win and the way they beat USC. With the committee coming out with their first rankings on Tuesday of next week, the winner of this game is all of a sudden, especially if Notre Dame wins this game, I cannot wait to see where the committee would have Notre Dame ranked after their win against USC. Think about their only loss to Georgia by a point. They went to East Lansing and won convincingly. They still have big games ahead of them, a trip to Miami, a trip to Stanford. They don't have a conference championship game. Notre Dame becomes a legitimate team in this playoff picture if they get through this game against NC State. NC State's defensive line is as good as there is, very strong, very athletic, very tough. So, to me, the matchup is, you brought up some great points about Finley and his offense, and that'll be a challenge. But really what I can't wait to see is the way Notre Dame is running the football with Adams and Wimbush. Can they establish the run against this defense from NC State, or will Wimbush be put in some obvious passing situations where we really haven't seen him excel in that particular area yet? But I think Notre Dame's for real, man. And we're having some fun, you and I, but if they get by this Saturday, look out. They got a real shot.
And again, next week is the week that we get the first CFP rankings. Right. This past week, Herbie's top 4 are Alabama, Penn State, Georgia, and TCU. We'll see if all of those survive this weekend. Herbie, thanks for taking part in this. It was fun. I'm sorry that Golic was all over you all week long.
Whatever.
And we will see you this weekend for game day. Thanks,
all right,
Herbie.
Fellas. Have a great week.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Robert Stanberry only III. He'll join us live momentarily from L.A., where last night it was the Clayton Kershaw Show. And Justin Turner helping along the way. Turner has been ridiculous in this postseason. And the Dodgers have a 1-0 lead in the World Series after a night where I'm getting more and more, as we're talking about this, more and more fans who seem to be frustrated with the way the game was, I'm going to use the word officiated last night, the way it was umped last night, with the belief that Kershaw was getting calls that Keuchel wasn't getting.
Yeah, Phil Cuzzy, the home plate umpire, favors the home pitcher. So, we'll ask Buster some of that. Clayton Kershaw got strike calls on 40% of his pitches. 47% of his pitches he threw in the lower third of the zone, the highest rate in a postseason start in his career. Keuchel only received that strike call 26% of the time. So that is being brought up as to, he pitched so well because the ump was kind of, favoring him in that instance. And
listen, I mean, this was a game where Kershaw made one mistake and Keuchel made two.
Right.
So you could look at it one of two ways. You can say, look, I mean, he still pitched a very good game, or you can look at it in a game as tight as this was, where the other guy's pitching as well as he is. One mistake is all it takes.
Right.
One additional mistake, and that is all it took. The other little sidebar here as we await Buster that I thought was interesting last night is the amount of attention that the play button in the middle of the screen was getting for the YouTube ad.
For YouTube ad,
was that a work of genius?
Well, listen, we've seen all the time the advertisements behind home plate there, whatever, new show coming up, whatever, sponsors coming up, rolling through there. That one, there are so many tweets about how distracting that was, that it was just that button, that play button that you look at, you saw every pitch, you saw that thing. I thought the same thing. I thought it was a little distracting.
They brilliantly positioned it.
Yeah, they did.
So that it was directly in the center of the screen. This was obviously no accident.
No.
They measured the shot from center field, and so that it is exactly in the center. So it looked the entire game like you wanted to walk up and push play.
Yes, you did. Yep.
You wanted to hit play on the television the entire night, and I think that's genius. I think that was a work of absolute genius.
It's there for a reason, right? It's an advertisement, so you want it to be seen, and it was seen.
May I just, as an aside, I like that pronunciation. Advertisement. As opposed to an advertisement.
Oh, okay.
The guys in my ear are screaming, no, they don't like it. I kind of like it.
I like advertisement.
I think it's a fancified version of advertisement.
Either way, used contextually correct.
But I don't think either is incorrect. I don't think advertisement is incorrect. I think it's less frequently used than advertisement.
We've gone through this a lot with different words. The latest when they showed one of the throwbacks, finance and finance.
Finance. I in the same way that I believe finance is a perfectly acceptable pronunciation of that word, I believe advertisement is an equally appropriate word or pronunciation for that word.
But the way you use finance was wrong.
Forgetting that.
I know.
To go back to the previous point, though, is here's why I think it was genius.
Mm-hmm.
Two things. One, it made it look like the product.
Absolutely.
It actually, the entire game looked like you were watching it or you were waiting to watch it on YouTube.
On YouTube. I agree.
The other thing is there are some products that if they advertise it to you in a way that is going to aggravate you, you might go a different direction.
Right.
Just making this up.
It may turn you off.
Coke and Pepsi, right? They're close enough together to each other potentially that someone might say, "Man, that advertisement is bothering me so much. I'm going to go do the other one."
Right.
No one is boycotting YouTube.
No, they're not.
You can't stop watching YouTube. The whole world now is YouTube.
Completely agree.
So, no, it's not like anyone, even the people who are aggravated by it aren't going to say, well, that's it. I'm not watching my vlogs
Never watching
anymore.
YouTube again.
Not going to happen. You don't have any concern about that.
Which almost makes you wonder why they're even advertising anyway, because everybody watches YouTube anyway.
I guess. But I thought it was brilliant, to be honest
with you. But it was there, and I mean, you noticed that one more than some of the other advertisements there. So, but it was well placed, and I completely agree with you.
Are you not comfortable now just going ads? I mean, on second reference, can you just say ads? I mean,
I can.
You're obviously now you're pushing the advertisements. I feel like
So you think I'm using it not too much?
I think. Well, I mean, I think that you're. Let me ask you a question. No, I don't want to get into this. We're talking about the World Series. These guys are trying to force me to ask you other questions.
When an advertisement works, you use it.
I feel like it is. Is that a slightly highfalutin pronunciation of that word?
It can be, yes.
Yeah, and that's a. Here's the difficulty that I'm having. I'm having people in my ear arguing with you through me now.
I enjoyed that particular advertisement. Is everybody happy now?
Well, let's just go with ad, and then everyone will be happy with that. Okay. And then let's talk about Justin Turner. Justin Turner is having the kind of postseason that you dream about. And when I say that, I don't even know that that's doing it justice. I'm going to give you the list now of the three highest OPSs in Major League Baseball postseason history. Number 1, Lou Gehrig. Number 2, Babe Ruth. Number 3, Justin Turner and his beard. That is an incredible, what a ridiculous list to put yourself on. Now, I understand before the tweets start flying in that the meaning of postseason today is different than the meaning of postseason when Gehrig and Ruth played. But that almost furthers the point. Yes, he's had more opportunities, but so have a lot of other people in recent years. That is a bordering on ridiculous statistic.
It is.
That Turner is putting up. And here's a guy who was having himself one of those postseasons. We see it every year. Someone comes up out of nowhere, and all of a sudden they're unconscious. And this year it's Turner.
Yeah, it is. And quite honestly, Chris Taylor has been playing well as well. And I keep going back to him to give him some love. The first time he steps into a batter's box in a World Series, he takes the first pitch of the game for when they're at bat, their first pitch in the bottom of the first, and goes yard with it. To me, it was just stunning. Absolutely stunning. Like, he went up there with the intent. He gives me anything to hit. I am taking it, and he did.
Here's how locked in a guy like Justin Turner is right now. In this postseason, he has 13 swings and misses and 13 hits. He has as many hits as he has swings and misses. And with that thought in mind, let's bring Buster Olney into the conversation. So many different things to get to with you this morning, Buster, and we so appreciate you getting up bright and early out there after what we have no doubt was a schwitzy night for you in the heat in Los Angeles, and we'll get to that. But we're in the middle of talking about Justin Turner, so pick up the thought right there. We mentioned the OPS. He's behind only Gehrig and Ruth now in history. He has as many hits as swings and misses in this year's postseason. What can we say about the playoffs that Justin Turner is putting together?
Well, when you talk to evaluators about this World Series coming in, they brought up the Dodgers' absolute domination of the strike zone among their hitters. And Justin Turner is first and foremost in that, where they feel like that he constantly controls the zone. It's difficult to get the ball past him. And if it's out of the zone, he'll just take it. And that, has been a trademark for this team. Going into that game last night, guys, in this postseason, the Dodgers hitters have 44 walks, their opponents 12. That's an incredible difference. And last night I thought that Justin's at-bats were classic for the type of adjustments that he'll make during the course of a game, where early on, Dallas Keuchel actually made him look bad the first couple of at-bats, throwing cut fastballs inside. So what does Justin Turner do? He goes back to the dugout. He gets a different bat, one that's a little bit lighter, because he wants to get to that inside pitch. And Keuchel, the pitch that Keuchel threw that he hit a home run off was actually not a bad pitch. It was a cut fastball. It was in and it was up, but Justin Turner got to it. Joey Votto is someone in baseball who's respected for his knowledge of hitting. Justin Turner would be right up there with him in terms of making adjustments against opposing pitchers.
Gotta love the hair flow and the beard as well. That just adds to the lore right now. Very, very cool. Let's go to the pitching. And before we talk about the dominance of Kershaw, let's talk about Phil Cuzzi, the home plate umpire. Was he given preferential treatment? Is wrong. Was he given the home pitcher a little more love than the visiting pitcher in this game?
Look, there were a couple of calls early that raised my eyebrows in terms of a strike on a certain hitter. I think George Springer had one early where you're like, boy, that was a little bit down. But being there at the game, I didn't feel like it was egregious in one way or another. And I've seen games during this offseason where I felt like the home plate umpire is really consistent, but I didn't think it was that bad last night.
So then let's go to the pitching. Both pitchers actually pitched pretty well. 2 mistakes by Keuchel, 1 by Clayton Kershaw. Let's go to Clayton Kershaw. We've been waiting for him to be dominant in the postseason and lead this team to a World Series. I'd say you can check that first box.
Well, and that's great for his legacy. He's not quite at this stage in his career. I think we might have talked about this yesterday, where it feels like that he's kind of like John Elway at the end of his career with the Broncos, where it's like he's got to get the Super Bowl to make it right. And Clayton, as you say, checked that box last night. I was really curious with the hot temperatures here if he would have some adjustment to his pregame regimen. But I was told, Clayton always comes out if it's a 5 o'clock type start. He'll always come out of the dugout at 4:22. Nothing will change with him because he just will not relent to anything. And sure enough, last night, 4:22, he comes out of the dugout. Crowd gives him a big cheer. And, guys, he had a jacket on in 103-degree temperatures, goes out, goes through his warm-up process, and right from the get-go, you could tell he had great command. Of all of his pitches, and that's tough enough for a hitter. But in that lineup for Houston last night, only one guy in their lineup had more than 3 plate appearances in his career against Clayton, and that was Jose Altuve. Everybody else had 3 or less. And that's a problem because when you talk to hitters about facing Kershaw, they talk about the deceptiveness of his delivery, that slight pause at the top of his delivery like a flamingo, and how it takes a while to get used to that. He was dominant.
Mike and Buster only painting the word picture for us of Clayton Kershaw's performance last night. I agree. This has been a lot about his legacy, and he has stepped up in a big way. Then there's Justin Verlander, and you told a great story with us last week or whenever it was about how he at one point was crying because he felt like he just didn't have it anymore, and now he has rebounded to where he's been one of the great deadline acquisitions in the history of the sport this year, and they need him to go out and be that tonight. What do you expect from Verlander tonight in Game 2?
That he'll pitch great. Before Verlander pitched Game 6 of the American League Championship Series, Joe Girardi, the Yankees manager, was just raving about him and said, look, this guy's a fighter. Like, he loves this type of stuff. And you can tell it being around Justin. I mean, he's completely energized by this. And so I'm sure that the fact that A.J. Hinch mentioned, the Astros manager mentioned the term must win, I'm sure Justin's probably aware of that going into Game 2, and I'm sure he absolutely loves it. And he saw Clayton Kershaw, who's a future Hall of Famer, go out and pitch this great game. Justin can't wait to go out and try to match him because he's the most competitive person in baseball. He's throwing great. I'm really curious, like with Kershaw, to see if he makes some adjustment for the heat. It's supposed to be 97, 98 degrees at the outset. And a big question for me is, we talked about Justin Turner and the Dodgers and the ability to control the strike zone. Will they have more success than the Yankees did in terms of fouling off pitches, not swinging pitches out of the zone, running a Verlander's pitch count?
Buster, you're doing a great job of painting a picture for us, so we'd like you to paint this picture as well. It was 103 degrees. We're wondering, was there sweat going down your back, maybe down the pants as well? I mean, how sweaty were you?
Just a second. Security's talking. I'm doing. Okay.
This is great.
Thanks. Sorry. There's just not many people talking out loud at 5 o'clock in the morning out here.
Where are you, Buster? Where are you?
I'm in the lobby of the hotel because I don't want to wake up other guests.
Okay. Oh, very good. And so security was giving you a hard time about speaking loudly on the radio?
They wondering if I was a crazy person.
Okay.
So yesterday, to answer your question, Golic, was the first time I ever heard this particular question. Someone in the elevator said, "Is back sweat 1 or 2 words?" Okay. I mean, it was so hot. And, we have this, at ESPN, of course, you do SportsCenter and you have the coat and tie. Yesterday, it's like the privates in the Army took over. No, we're not doing the coat and tie. We're wearing whatever we feel like wearing because it's so hot. And they actually imported a bunch of polo shirts in for the folks who were doing SportsCenter and different shows like that. I brought a polo shirt, and I was just going to say, no, I'm sorry. I'm not going to stand there and just melt in a coat and tie.
Yeah, well, Timmy Kirkjian said that it made him sweat and that he doesn't sweat much because he only weighs 148 pounds. And Golic had a couple of funny thoughts on that. So what is the anticipation? It's going to be just as hot tonight, right?
Not quite as hot. It's supposed to be 97, 98 degrees. First pitch, as I'm sure you guys mentioned yesterday, 103 degrees at 5:11. The only thing that made it, I think, somewhat reasonable for the players was that the sun was quickly off the field. It had advanced out beyond center field, and that was okay. It's not going to be quite as hot, but it's going to be really hot.
And all kidding aside, because we've enjoyed kidding about this a little bit this morning, but does it actually impact a baseball game that much? I mean, the ball carries, and maybe that one ball we were talking about it with Eduardo Perez earlier this morning, maybe the temperature actually impacts the ball that might otherwise have been a fly ball to left field that goes into the seats. But as far as fatigue and all that kind of stuff, the starting pitchers, do you think it actually has an impact on the game?
I think in a long inning it could. Like if a pitcher, like last night, Kershaw and Keuchel were rolling out 10, 12, 14, 15-pitch innings when you guys saw the time of game, which was remarkable, and that got them through that. If you have an inning in which Verlander, you've seen the Dodgers foul off a lot of pitches, he's throwing 30, 35, 40 pitches, I think it could be a factor there. So many of the players have talked about, hey, once you're out there, the adrenaline is so extraordinary. And that crowd last night, guys, the Dodger crowd staying until the last pitch. Justin Turner said after the game is the best Dodger crowd that he's ever seen. I suspect that helps as well in terms of keeping the players in it.
Buster, off the World Series, we've seen some of the managerial changes around the league already. Still waiting on what's going to happen in New York with both Girardi and Cashman. Any news on either one of those?
Well, I know from talking with sources within the Yankees organization, full expectation that Brian Cashman will get another contract and will continue as the general manager. But there's absolute radio silence from the Yankee organization about Joe Girardi's situation. We talked last month about Girardi, and it felt like that his tenure with the Yankees may be reaching the expiration point. I still think that's the case. I know that there have been conversations, the Yankees, brass and Girardi, and I'm sitting here wondering, does this mean that when there's a break in the World Series, because the Yankees are well aware of the rule from MLB that they don't want big news broken during the course of the World Series, if during the off day on Thursday we're going to hear that Joe Girardi's tenure as Yankees manager is over, we'll just have to wait and see. His contract, of course, is also expiring, and it might be that the Yankees just want to move on.
Really interesting. All right, Buster, listen, we so appreciate you getting up early in the morning and going down to the lobby so you don't bother other people and suffering the slings and arrows of the security that obviously thinks you're a lunatic. So we appreciate that very much. Enjoy the game tonight and stay cool.
Thanks, Bus.
Yeah, guys, if they haul me away, come and get me, okay?
Gotcha.
We'll send reinforcements. That's Buster Olney with us, Mike and Mike. And a reminder, the road to the World Series goes right through ESPN Radio. Catch all the postseason action presented by AutoZone on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and the ESPN app. I asked that question with a little bit of seriousness. I mean, you made me laugh a little earlier with your Tim McKirkson thing. But in a football, I mean, basketball's on, hockey are obviously played indoors.
Right.
Which parenthetically brings me back to my idea that I want basketball moved to the Winter Olympics, but that's a whole other discussion for another time.
Why don't you do that in your new show?
I will. Okay. That's our first day. We're going to lead our first day with that. I'm going to do 20 minutes on how basketball should be in the Winter Olympics. But all kidding aside, now you made me forget my point. Oh, no.
Heat. Playing in Heat.
Yeah. Like I was watching in the NFL this weekend, like in Miami. That was pretty significant heat. What's the hottest football game you ever played in?
Oh, my God. Well, I'm sure it was in the 90s, possibly even over 100. It's not so much because it definitely is different because I played in heat in Arizona and I played in heat in Houston. I played, now that was, we were in the Astrodome
right?
there.
Yeah.
But I played in Miami my last year, when they made the training facility right there, so you practiced in Fort Lauderdale. We practiced and you played.
Was that outside?
It was outside.
Practice, not a bubble or anything?
No, not a bubble. It was outside. And we practiced like at 7:30 in the morning early, and then 2 days we'd practice later on in the evening. They didn't have an indoor facility. It was a brand new, and there was no indoor facility. Yes, I mean, it's definitely different. I mean, you have to really worry about hydrating well before that. I don't mean an hour before the game. I mean, days leading up to it. And during the game, man, I mean, the ice towels, anything to refresh on the wrists, on the neck, on those areas to try and refresh you. It is definitely tough. Just like the cold, a lot of it is how much you put on. The cold can affect how it can affect the specialist positions if they're putting on a lot of gear and can't move as well, not even to bring in how the condition of the field or anything like that. But heat is horrid. I'd play in cold most guys would play in cold any day of the week, except maybe for wide receivers, and depending on how cold it is. You'd rather play in the colder weather than heat. It can just melt you. It just zaps you. Because, remember, as a defender, you're just used to running all the time, pursuit all the time, because the last thing you want to do is get caught on tape jogging to a play. So you're constantly running, and it will definitely have its effect in that humid weather.
Yeah, and you've got all the pads on and everything else. And I was with the baseball play. The one place that I could see it impacting a guy would be the pitchers. And he mentioned this the time of the game last night, by the way. And who had the bigger smile last night than anybody is Rob Manfred with a 2-hour and 28-minute game in the World Series last night. I'll be very interested to see what the ratings are. We'll get those soon, the initial rating for last night's game, and I'll be very curious to see what that is. And I would think that the sort of snappy pace of it, and I've got a bunch of tweets here, people saying, and I've been saying this forever, that the bigger strike zone, call a strike, and that moves the game along. One of the reasons the game moves along last night.
Tell that to the batters.
Is that a strike?
Who are, balls going below their knees at their ankles, it's getting called a strike.
So swing at it. I mean, at the end of the day, so swing. Well, below their knees shouldn't be a strike.
Well, and that's the point. Last night it was. So I mean, yeah.
But to me, I feel like one of the things that we've seen in baseball since my childhood is the strike zone has definitely shrunk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I think that the larger the strike zone is in general. I'm not saying stuff down at the ankles.
I'm with you, but there's the other side of it of a batter working a pitcher, making him throw more pitches as well.
And that takes a long time.
No, I know.
That takes a very long time.
You want it to move faster, but there's strategy in a game that says, hey, the more pitches this guy throws, the sooner we can get him out, so you want to be more patient.
Understood, which is once again why I don't look to the players to make any changes. Right. I look to the rules because players will adjust. Right. Call a strike. I loved it last night. All right, I have a Lonzo Ball-related over-under coming up here, so I'll save it for that. So why don't we do that here?
Real quickly, did you see that with Kawhi Leonard out? Did you see the record that Greg Popovich has without a player?
I saw it in the notes this morning.
It's incredible. He has over a 600 winning percentage, better than when Tim Duncan was out. Kawhi Leonard 617, Tony Parker out 654, Manu Ginobili 667, David Robinson 778. I mean, he wins even without his stars on the court. It's amazing.
It is amazing. He's the best coach. I mean, that there's a remarkable number.
It really is.
And my pick of Kawhi Leonard to be the league MVP, we're a week and a half into this.
He'll have to get on the court to do it.
He's going to have to get on the court to do it, but I think I've already changed my mind. I think I've already changed my mind about who I think is going to win.
Who's going to win it?
I think Antetokounmpo is going to win.
The Greek freak?
Yes, I think he's going to put up numbers like we've never seen ever.
Well, we said that last year. Russell Westbrook put up numbers we've never seen ever.
But so did Antetokounmpo, the Greek freak, and I think I've just said that twice quickly and got it right both times.
I think you did as well.
He led a team in every statistical category, which even Westbrook didn't do last year. Westbrook put up a triple-double for a season, which we hadn't seen since the Big O. But Antetokounmpo led his own team in every statistical category. And I think he's going to do that again, and I think they're going to win more games than they lose. They're going to win more games than they won a year ago. They're not a great team, but they're a good team. The whole world is talking about him, paying attention to him. He's the guy. He's built like if Kevin Garnett had Chris Paul's skills, he would have been Giannis. It's not Giannis. It's a Giannis Antetokounmpo. Yeah. And that I think he's going to be the MVP.
He's incredible. Listen, he really is 6'11", 222. Leads in every category last year. Leads in only doesn't lead in blocks this year. Leads in everything else this year for the team as well. But that's the one thing we'll wait and see now. Is what can that team do? What can that team build around a guy like that who is just skyrocketing up as far as great players in this league? So we'll talk about the individual, but when will we be able to talk about the team?
By the way, Buster just sent us an email, which makes me think two things. One, how great is he? He gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning in the middle of covering the World Series and goes down to the lobby so he will not disturb other people trying to sleep in his hotel in Los Angeles so he can come on our show and do some baseball analysis, which I very much appreciate, and I know you do too. And then he's sending us further information.
Yes, he is.
About tonight's home plate umpire, because we were talking about Phil Cuzzi last night. So tonight's home plate umpire, Paul Nauert, this is the scouting report, is a very hitter-friendly umpire. He is especially hitter-friendly to left-handed batters and modestly hitter-friendly to right-handed
What's he got against right-handed batters?
Well, I mean, again...
It's a joke. Yeah.
Is anyone else kind of rubbed the wrong way by that?
Yes.
Is there anyone else that feels like the game should be the game, the strike zone should be the strike zone, and every single night the hitter and the pitcher should not have to spend the first inning or two figuring out what a strike is going to be today? Like that has rubbed me the wrong way for a very long time. Whatever a strike is, it should be. Either way, one figures if it worked to Kershaw's advantage last night, now it will work to the disadvantage. And one would think if the Dodgers are only counting on getting 4 innings out of Rich Hill and the Astros are hoping against hope that they get 8 innings out of Justin Verlander tonight, one would think this is an advantage for the Dodgers.
Yeah, of all the referee and official in other sports calls they have to make, the strike zone is one of the most defined, right? It's supposed to be one of the most, because you can get there in the NFL, pass interference, offensive pass interference, holding.
Calls.
The
strike zone is not a judgment.
Strike zone is not supposed to be a judgment call. It's supposed to be well defined, but This is what you're scouting umpires, but you do it in the other sports. You scout the officials and the referees on how they make calls. But within a strike zone, it is supposed to be more defined.
So the scouting report on tonight's umpire, I believe, is an advantage to the Dodgers. Let's see how that turns out this evening. Let's do over-unders now with Mike and Mike, which are brought to you by Cabbage, who created a simple way for businesses to get flexible access to up to $100,000. That's Cabbage with a K. Golic, our first over-under is 5,000. Which is 5,000 passing yards for Tom Brady this season.
I'm going to go under. I don't think he'll get there. I think he's on pace to just get over 5,000 yards now. And they switch things up, I think, too many times. Sometimes it's running, sometimes it's passing. To where I think he'll be over 4,500, but I do not think he'll be over 5,000.
There have only been 9 5,000-yard passing seasons in history. Drew Brees has 5 of them. I think he's got a chance this year, and part of the reason is I think they have legitimate competition in the division, which means I think he'll still be working it the last game of the season. The last game could be the decider. Right. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing. They play the Jets the last week of the season. That may very well be a game that the Patriots need to win, which it hasn't been for a while. So I think the Patriots are going to have to play into December this year. I think Brady's got a real shot to go over. So just for fun, I'll go over.
Okay.
Next over-under is 72. Sacks by the Jaguars this season are currently on pace for 75. The NFL record is 72, set by the 84 Bears, not the 85 Bears.
Right.
The 84 Bears. So will Saxonville go over-under on 72?
Wow. That's a good question. I'm going to say no because I think other teams, as they go on, I think they're a better team, but I think other teams will have leads on them and not have to throw the ball maybe as much to be sacked. They'll be able to run the ball a little more, but they are playing well. A lot still hinges, obviously, on Blake Bortles and what they need him to do. But, boy, you love the way the defense is going. But I'll go under.
Calais Campbell has 10 sacks himself at this stage of the season. The next over-under is the number 10, and that is the number of points for Lonzo Ball tonight against John Wall. Remember, in that first game, he scored only 3 on a night where they decided they were going to shut him down. They were going to do everything they could to shut him down. And now we have a little bit of that dynamic here going on with Washington, where Lonzo's dad, LeVar, said, there's no way Lonzo's losing to the Wizards this week. And Marcin Gortat got upset about this, and he tweeted, John Wall is going to torture him for 48 minutes.
Shut him down. Lonzo averaging 13 points. His games are 3, 29, and 8. So 2 times he hasn't been in double digits, 1 time well into it with 29 points.
To over-under on 10.
I'm going to go under. I think he'll have, he's averaging, 9 rebounds, 7 or 8 assists. I think he'll do well there, but I think the point total will be down. John Wall, listen, it's become a focal point to hold him down. And John Wall has done well against rookies he's played against, usually doubling their score and their assists. So I'll say from a point perspective here, I'll go under the 10 points.
Look, this thing with LeVar, it's remarkable that it is going into the season to the degree that it is, and I want to set aside a few minutes to talk about that shortly, but I like these over-unders, so let's do these. Over-under is 1.5. Teams that finish the NFL season winless. The Browns are 0-7, the Niners are 0-7. Either, neither, both.
I say 1 does, so I'll go under.
Winless. You think we will? One of them will not win a game? It's only happened once in history.
I can't do it. I can't think that's going to happen.
It's only happened once in a 16-game schedule. I shouldn't say once in history.
Only once in no. I'm going to say no. Under. None. I'm going to say none. I'm going to say they sneak out a win.
This is Cleveland's schedule. They have Minnesota this week, then at Detroit, home Jacksonville, at Cincinnati, at the Chargers, home Green Bay, home Baltimore, at Chicago, at Pittsburgh. Could the Steelers not need that game? Is it possible that game will be meaningless to the Steelers?
Well, listen, Baltimore's not playing great either.
They win games. Their defense is good. Well, their offense is terrible.
Chicago, defense is playing better. We'll see where Mitch is.
Everyone is better than them. The bottom
everyone
line
is better
everyone
than
is better than them.
I agree.
And they don't play each other.
I agree. Right.
I think the 49ers will win a game. I think the Browns may not. I'm going to go under.
Now
we're going to go under and 1.5.
Should find out today who the starting quarterback will be
for the Browns. And then we'll find out next Wednesday again.
Who the next
every single week you find out who their starting quarterback is going to be. Yeah. Finally, 1.5 is the over/under on teams from the AFC East to make it to the playoffs. It's been a surprisingly good division this year. The Patriots are 5-2. The Bills are 4-2. The Dolphins are 4-2. The Jets are 3-4, which is better than we thought, and they've had opportunities to win other games. So how many teams make it to the playoffs? Over/under 1.5.
You know, we kept talking about the AFC West having 3, and you have the second place there, Broncos at 3-3, and then the Chargers and the Raiders with a losing record at 3-4. So just for fun, I'll go over. I said, let's get 2 teams out of the AFC.
I think there's a good chance. I do.
Yeah.
I don't know which one. I think it'll either be Buffalo or Miami, and I'm not sure which one.
I think if I had to choose, it'd be Buffalo.
I want to see Matt Moore play tomorrow night. They play Baltimore tomorrow night. I want to see if he keeps this going.
Yeah.
If they get a little more offense, I think that they are a team. They have a lot of good players on that offense.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Lots of fun this morning on Wednesday with you, and we thank you for starting your day with us. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests, like Buster Olney, that was him live an hour ago from L.A. in the lobby of a hotel at 5 in the morning.
Yelled at by security there.
Los Angeles time. Yeah. He was on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Will Cain makes his way into our studio. Wednesdays with Will, as we like to call it. Delight to see you as always. Cain, how are you?
Good morning, fellas.
But before we get to anything else, we got a couple of things. You were in here listening to the end of our previous conversation, and we'll get to Lonzo and LeVar. But I'm told that you had some thoughts on we are running over the course of this week and the next few weeks here as we wrap up what has been this magnificent 18 years, a lot of old moments. And we showed one from, was it 2009?
2009.
When Golic got his legs waxed for losing a bracket wager, and I looked like I was like 16 years old. And I'm told you had thoughts on that. What were your thoughts on my appearance?
I've got so many takes. I hope we have time. And you've had so many things this morning that I found fascinating that we got to get to, including some baseball stats on the Keuchel versus Kershaw matchup last night. But the big takeaway for me from the show so far has been this 2009 video where, Golic, you are the centerpiece of the video, getting your legs waxed. But one can't help but notice you, Greeny, throughout the entire video. And I know it didn't escape your attention either. It's dated 2009.
Yeah.
You have a 1970s mop haircut. I guess that would technically be like a 60s haircut.
Uh-huh.
You're wearing clearly a double XL shirt, and I would say the jeans are probably 36 waist, 36 length. You are being absolutely swallowed by your clothes.
Yeah. It's not a great look. For those of you watching on ESPN2 right now, you see the picture of what I looked like. That's what I looked like. It was my first reaction, too. What was I thinking? Like, you look back at it and you think, what was I thinking? It was 2009. It does. I look like David Cassidy as Keith Partridge. That's what I look like. I look like I should be singing, Come On, Get Happy.
But here's the deal. I don't think you're alone. Somewhere, I believe, in the last 5 to 10 years, everyone figured out you should buy clothes that fit.
Yeah.
Every dude running around out there was buying clothes to the size he wished he was. I wish I lifted more.
Yeah.
So I better go ahead and get the bigger size in case I grow into it.
See, here's the thing. I don't think anyone, the day we did that, was walking around saying, boy, what's Greeny doing? Like, maybe they were doing it behind my back, but that's what I looked like every single day then.
The thing I noticed so much, Will, and I said it from 2000 to now, is his hair color's never changed. So I want to know when he started coloring his hair.
As God is my witness, I do not color my hair.
Whatever.
I have not colored my hair, and I will not color my hair. I'm looking forward to Salt and Pepper. I believe it will give me gravitas.
Mm-hmm. You told me to put my beard back on for gravitas, so
correct.
I know you value gravitas. Second observation from this video, you guys are aging like fine wine.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not doing that because, hey, you're doing this Wednesdays with Will thing. I'm glad to be here. Men might have a sweet spot, and you guys are in that, of course you look good in your 20s when everything's still in the right place. And then I think you go through that, hey, the fruit's starting to turn, and you can see the bruises on the banana kind of thing in your 30s and 40s, and come out the other side, and I don't want to put numbers on it.
Right.
You guys can put the numbers where you want.
I'm 54. I got no problem.
But you start coming out the other side, and you're like, hey, that banana's not bad. I know it's been sitting around for a few days, but I'm going to eat that banana. And I think you guys are hitting a.
I could have lived with a different analogy, but I do understand the point you're making.
Yeah.
And I think it is well taken. I think what you're trying to say is
we look good.
We look fantastic.
Yeah, is that what you're trying to say?
I would venture this. You put that 2009 video against your 2017 video, and you're going to get 100% approval rating that you look better now.
So that's what it is. It's not that we look good. It's like we look so bad then that now we just look a little better now.
Look, the bottom line of it is we do look fabulous. And one last thing on this, and then we'll get to sports here with Will, is people who are relatively new to our show still hear me every now and again make fat jokes about Golic, but all of the humor has gone out of them because Golic is not fat. So I'm always kind of happy when we see the old pictures because you were fat.
I was.
You were a fat man, and now I basically made my career making fat jokes about
us
you.
Fat people prefer big bones.
Well, no, but now look at you. That's the difference in you. I mean, that picture.
Absolutely.
Look at his face. Look at it. We're showing it right now on ESPN. Look at the man's face. He looked like a blowfish. Comparatively
Whoa, that
speaking,
might be a little much.
You look much better.
I was just
now.
recently out of my athletic career during that picture.
Obviously.
It was more recent anyway. Okay, let's move on from that. Anyway, Will, I appreciate you bringing that up and taking a moment to mock us here on our own show. Okay, now let's get to LeVar, because I've been hesitant to get too into this because there is a part of me, as I prefaced my comments a moment ago by saying that I don't like telling other people how they should parent their children, and I don't feel like I'm doing that here. I am a parent. All three of us are dads sitting at this table, and I don't invite other people to tell me how they think I should go about it, and so I don't feel comfortable telling others how they should go about it. But this, to me, has gone beyond that now. This is where if you're a person who is close to this guy in his life, close to Lonzo Ball, and you can't see that what you're doing, unless I'm missing something, is having a deleterious impact on his career. It's actually affecting him in a negative way. That's the part of this I find the most confusing.
Well, first, you don't like telling other people how to parent out loud.
Yeah.
Let's not pretend you don't turn to Stacy at home after drop-off at school or going to the playground going, can you believe the way they're raising that boy?
Right. No, I wouldn't say it on the air.
Right. Look, this will be a first for me, I believe. I don't believe in a year's news cycle of LeVar Ball I have ever defended him on anything. And this would include the fact that I would say 6 months ago I said he's putting a target on his son's back by saying negative things about not only active NBA players like LeBron James, but NBA legends like Charles Barkley or Michael Jordan. He's going to make it harder on his son, Lonzo Ball. However, my greatest fear was for the locker room he would end up putting Lonzo in. That he could walk into a locker room where his teammates don't have the warmest, fuzziest feelings about the guy that they're now supposed to invest their franchise in. But I'm not worried about what LeVar does to Lonzo's opponents. I'm not worried about how much he motivates Lonzo's opponents. So what? If he's making it so every opponent raises their level of competition for Lonzo Ball, so be it. I fully believe that Lonzo Ball is going to be a star in the NBA, regardless of how hard everyone else tries. When it's all said and done, he's going to be amazing. And to me, it's a little bit like a dad who plays his son up when he's 10 years old competing against 13-year-olds or 9-year-olds against 14-year-olds, whatever. He's making it difficult, and that I think the son, if he's worth his salt, will rise to the challenge. It just doesn't concern me that Patrick Beverley had a little extra for Lonzo Ball. Ultimately, Lonzo's got to rise to that occasion anyway.
I see it does concern me, and I'll tell you why. Because this is basketball where teams take nights off, where teams aren't always ready to go for 48 minutes every night. And he's making everyone who plays the Lakers, and specifically everyone who plays against his son, act like that night is Game 7 of the NBA Finals. And I think that actually does impact everybody. Mike, this is not football, where in every single game everyone's playing as hard as they can and giving it everything they have every single night. I don't hear people talking that way about De'Aaron Fox. I don't hear people talking that way about Jason Tatum. Oh, my God, I'm going to shut. Yeah, do people always go after the big, high-profile rookie a little bit? Yeah. But I don't hear them talking about Jason Tatum that way or De'Aaron Fox that way or Fultz, who obviously is struggling with an injury now.
Yeah. My point is I lean toward the way of Phil, or Will, and I just said that last segment is players are going to get up to play against other players anyway, especially rookies. But why give them extra incentive to knock him down like Beverly did the first time he crossed half court, to take that extra shot? Why at the highest level, why give anybody incentive to do that? I don't think it makes sense. Now, my problem was, what I said was not so much the opponents, though I do think there's no need to do it. It's LeVar and hopefully not alienating or how the teammates think of Lonzo. And all you hear, he's a great kid and everybody likes him. But at some point, when does too much of dad rub that the wrong way? And as I said in that video about Washington better look out. Lonzo doesn't lose again this week. Not the Lakers don't lose again this week. So there's no team concept with LeVar. It's big baller brand. It's LeVar, look at me, or it's my kid's better than everybody out there. So in the long run, Will, my concern is just what you said early on, and that's what I said. in that locker room.
Yeah.
And I think Lonzo's a good enough kid to hopefully that won't happen, because all you hear is it's really good with him. But LeVar just keeps busting his presence in there. Everybody puts a microphone in his face, and he has no problem using it.
I'm with you lockstep. I'm not worried about his competition. I'm worried about his teammates. And Greeny, I'm sorry it's a cliche, but I think the answer to your concerns is iron sharpens iron, trial by fire, all these platitudes. The truth of the matter is, if Lonzo gets everybody's best for 82 games, he's going to be more prepared for the playoffs when everybody gives you their best anyway.
Mike and Mike Will Cain's in our studio with the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. This time tomorrow, we'll be talking to Orioles manager Buck Showalter about what then will be 2 games into the World Series. And one of the storylines coming out of Game 1, and obviously Clayton Kershaw, the redemption of him, if you will, as the great regular season performer who's now having the great playoffs. That's a huge story here. Justin Turner, who is now the 3rd best offensive player in baseball's postseason history, behind only Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth, which is an unbelievable statistic. And then part of it is about the strike zone, and we were talking about it last night. I know that the Astros were upset. And, Mike, you had a stat earlier this morning that Phil Cuzzi was giving pitches to Clayton Kershaw that he wasn't giving to Dallas Keuchel.
It was you guys, if you throw it up again just so I get it exact, it was, 47% of pitches that Clayton Kershaw received a strike call on 47% of pitches he threw in the lower third of the zone. That's the highest rate in a postseason start in his career. Dallas Keuchel only received that strike call 26% of the time, less than his career postseason average. So,
what do you make of that, Will?
I think that's a huge deal. And as you said earlier this morning, Greeny, in a game that was defined by 2 mistakes for Dallas Keuchel, that kind of swing in percentages is the deciding factor in the game. I mean, look, I love Clayton Kershaw. He's a Dallas guy. I root for Dallas guys largely. I don't mean to insult Clayton. He's actually a Highland Park guy, so I don't want to take anything away from that very exclusive neighborhood. But I'm glad that Clayton had a night like he did. But that can't happen in my mind, Golic. But I read something this morning by Jeff Sullivan, who writes at Fangraphs, and that stat actually isn't a surprise. That's been happening for the Dodgers all season long, regular season and postseason. They receive one of the highest percentages of borderline pitch calls of any team in the league. And, oh, by the way, on the other end of that spectrum, the Astros receive one of the lowest percentages of borderline strike calls in the league. Now, that is often less to do with the ump, and I was talking to Himbo a minute ago. It's more to do with catchers and how it's framed. And the Astros have a great catcher, so it's hard to explain, but they're not getting the calls that the Dodgers have all season long.
The Astros also don't strike out much, which is interesting because the Astros, it's the reverse. You're talking about the Astros pitching now, not about the Astros hitting. So it's just coincidental or ironic that the Astros struck out less, I think, than any team in baseball this year, right? They actually struck out the least of any team in baseball, and Kershaw struck out 11 last night. And then I got a good note as we were talking about the strike zone and its relation to pace of play, which is a huge topic around baseball right now. And our friend John Dahl, or one of our colleagues at ESPN, sent me a note, and he said, Greeny, you're absolutely right about the need for a bigger strike zone to move games along, especially since the Moneyball philosophy took hold by encouraging walks. The micromanaging of the strike zone has been bringing games to a crawl and taking us away from what I believe the strike zone was intended to be in the first place. Too many pitches leads to a lot of things, including too many pitching changes, which further slows things down. It's why I've always felt baseball needs to go with an automated system for balls and strikes with a big but fair strike zone. I don't know I don't know how the automated piece of this would work, but the first step to this for me has long been the strike zone's got to be bigger. Call a strike a strike. When we were kids, a strike was a strike. The idea of a strike zone is you're not supposed to be expected to hit a ball at your eyes, and you're not supposed to be expected to hit a ball at your feet. Anything else in between that's over the plate, swing at it and let's see if you can hit it or not. I think that's how this was all intended, and now everyone's working a walk and getting the starter out of there and all the rest of that. I think it all does contribute in a way to how long these games go and how long they feel.
Yeah, I like the way you said it when we were talking during the commercial break. If you can hit it, you should probably swing at it. 2 hours and 28 minutes is a better baseball game.
Yeah.
Can you fix college football now while you're at it?
I can fix everything. I mean, I like most geniuses, again, I will not be appreciated until after my time. Don't get me started. I got college football ideas for you. Let's turn our attention then to the NFL. We talked a lot early this morning about Martavis Bryant and his desire to get out of Pittsburgh and how he's handling his desire to get out of Pittsburgh, which to me are 2 different things. What's your take?
You know, I heard Junior this morning talk about this. I talked about it yesterday on Russillo. Look, I heard you made a very Greeny, utilitarian argument. If you don't like your situation and you got to get out of town, isn't that what Martavis Bryant is doing? Isn't he effectuating the outcome that he wants? He doesn't want to be a Steeler anymore. It looks like he's headed down that path. But, I guess my response to that is, isn't there a right way and a wrong way to do things? Do you have to burn down the house to get out of the house? And I would put Eric Bledsoe in the same category, but not to the same extent as Martavis Bryant, tweeting out, "I don't want to be here."
You don't believe that he really was in a salon and just didn't want to be there?
I love the way Ryan McDonough set that up, by the way, where he gave the entire
like he was going to believe,
as though he bought it, and he's like,
and we didn't believe it.
Yeah, we don't believe it. Look, I have harsh words for this guy. I think that he speaks in cryptic, inexplicable language. Apparently, I'm not woke enough to understand Kyrie Irving, but Kyrie Irving did it the right way. He went into management, and he said, "I don't want to be here anymore," and he did it behind the scenes. It eventually got out, but he didn't run to Instagram or Twitter to burn the house down in order to get out the front door. That's what Martavis is doing. You don't have to do that. Be a teammate.
And quite honestly, even if he did it what we consider the right way, who's to say that it's still going to work? I think that's – so all the things you said, Greeny, I understand. And as I said, there are hundreds of players every year that could be coming to the end of their contract, one of their contracts, that he doesn't want to be a Steeler. He just wants to go somewhere where he's the number one guy. Like, did I want to go somewhere else where I felt I could have been the starter, all-time starter, that could have helped me in my next contract negotiation? There's all kinds of players around the league that feel like they're in that situation. It doesn't mean you can, even if you go in and do it the right way, doesn't mean anything's going to happen. He could have gone into Mike Tomlin. Now, I hate the way he's going about it, but if he goes into Mike Tomlin, I'm Mike Tomlin, I'm like, sorry, man, we're going to use you. We think you can make some big catches for us occasionally. You're going to be on this team. And then he has to deal with it unless he wants to make himself such a pain, which is in no way, shape, or form is going to help you to the next team that you may end up on, given the fact you also missed the season because of your own doing in flunking the recreational drug test. So there is a right way and a wrong way, Will, to your point. But even doing it the right way doesn't mean you're going to get your way.
Hey, that's a hard lesson in life, isn't it? Yes. Doing things the right way doesn't mean it's going to work out for you. You do it because it's the right thing to do.
I mean, can you imagine if every player that was in this position just walked in and said, you know what? I know I'm getting a few minutes here. I could get more if you trade me. Oh, sure. Okay, we'll try and work that out for you. I mean, come on. I mean, man, this is life. You got to deal with the situation you're in, play to the end of your contract. He won't get the contract he wants right now. Then do a shorter deal in the next contract if you can. You got to find a way to make your hay. You can't have it handed to you just because I don't like it here anymore. I'm raising my hand. I'm doing it the right way. Can you get me out so I can do better somewhere else?
Listen, I don't disagree with what you guys are saying. There's a right and a wrong way to do this, and I believe he's doing it the wrong way. What I am saying, however, is I understand where he's coming from. These guys, look, it's brilliant. The people who own sports teams historically have done a brilliant job of convincing everyone, including the players and certainly the public, that it is disloyal to look at your situation and say, I could do better somewhere else. Loyalty is exclusively a one-way street in sports today, particularly in pro football. I mean, the DeMarco Murray story to me is the greatest example of this of all time, where in Dallas, they ran him into the ground and then at the end of the year said, well, we can't give you all this money. We gave you so many carries last year. You're generally, we've seen statistics where guys start to decrease after that. They just use up running backs in the NFL right now, and they never get a huge second contract because people say, well, you have so many miles on your tires. So now we're telling Martavis Bryant that in the one shot in his life he's likely to ever have to make $40 or $50 million, which the top-level receivers get, and he believes he's one of, you don't get that opportunity. You're not going to get it because of a bunch of circumstances that are beyond your control. Now, before you jump me, I get it.
Yeah,
much of it is he's a terrible person to be making this argument for.
I don't care if he never got suspended. I don't care if he was a model citizen. It doesn't matter. Just because you're not in position to get what you think you deserve, you think you should get handed that? Oh, well, certainly we'll trade you and put you in the right position. Come on.
Well, but that does happen in sports, right? You get guys who say, like, play me or trade me is a pretty well-known phrase. Guys who want out because they're not being utilized in the way that they believe they should be. That happens usually in basketball or in baseball. In football, we've somehow so conditioned, whatever it is you get, whatever you're in football, here's basically what they tell the players. This is your lot in life. You're lucky we're giving you this much. Whatever we're telling you,
stop with that. He signed a contract. He's getting paid $615,000. I'm not feeling sorry for the player. where we're supposed to feel sorry for them, that, they're maybe playing a little better than they thought they were. They think they're better than they are, so we should give them what they want. Give me a break.
Well, but we just had this conversation about Odell Beckham and about his name just jumped out of my head.
Antonio Brown?
No. The lineman in
Aaron
with the Rams,
Donald?
Aaron Donald, that are playing for $1.8 million.
There's a huge difference, and it's a huge difference in every sport.
Yeah, but
how good are you? The rules change. It's another.
But how good is Martavis?
Martavis isn't as good as Antonio Brown, isn't as good as Odell Beckham, isn't as good as Aaron Donald at his position, isn't as good as Zach Martin at his position. He's not.
But is he?
So the rules are different.
Is he good enough to be the number one receiver?
You know
on
what
an
he's
NFL
good enough
team?
to be for the Pittsburgh Steelers? A guy that'll make a couple of catches a game for a team that wants to make a run to a Super Bowl. So do your job with us that we signed you a contract to do for. Unless you're going to be a pain in the butt, then you know what? You're not going to play. Well, how is that going to serve your purpose? I mean, again, just because he thinks he can be a number one receiver, it doesn't matter what I think. They're supposed to just let him go. So, oh, yeah, go ahead. Forget the fact that we may need your 2 catches per game to make the run of the Super Bowl that we want. That Juju Smith-Schuster may get hurt. Antonio Brown may get hurt. Your role may increase. I mean, give me a break. We're not handing these guys what they want.
Golic, I think you're doing a wonderful job of handling the rebuttal here. I say there's just one thing I would add, and that is this. Greeny, you can be right in every aspect of your argument.
Yeah.
Martavis can want a different job. Martavis can think he's a better player. Martavis can think he should be receiving more money. But there's an a Pacific Ocean-sized gulf between that realization and trying to force your way out of town through sabotage. That is not... One does not lead to the other. The difference is adulthood. Being right and then saying everyone else around here is wrong and evil because I don't get what I want is not one and the same. I'm sure you have complaints about some of the decisions that are made at ESPN. Not every decision that is made here, I'm sure, gets the full 100% Greeny approval. But that doesn't give you license to run off to Twitter or social media and criticize and lambast everything that happens. And the reason you stop is impulse control, and you're on a team. You're part of the team.
2 things. One, I totally agree with that. And I don't think I'm saying anything other than that. He's doing this exactly the wrong way.
All right.
Second, is it lambast or lambased?
Let's get into this because it's advertisement, and we've been through this before. Okay,
the advertisement that was.
Where were you born?
In London.
No, you were not born in London, and you know it. You may have the Queen's panties on, but you're not born in Lincoln.
You have the strangest expressions of any person I know, but the word is pronounced lambased.
Her queen in her underwear.
Lambased, lambasted,
I don't even know what. I don't even know what expression you're going for. I know the one about if the Queen had. I'm not going to say it.
I've seen London. I've seen France.
I've seen Golic's underpants, but that's not what you're saying either.
So whatever it is, he's not from over there.
No,
and so over here, it's advertisement.
Final
it's
thought.
Not advertisement. Beyond that,
anything. I'll give you a final word on anything you want.
Finance. And lamb-based. What did I say?
You said lambast.
Well, I said it wrong.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I was highfalutin and fancy on that one.
I had to get one thing right.
Isn't tomato? You can't have multiple pronunciations?
Tomato.
So this is a Will Cain rule, or do you think this is how the English language is supposed to be?
The English language is supposed to be.
Okay.
Hey girl, have you done something new with your scales? Using new moisturizer? Nice. It really brings out the hazel in your eyes. Oh, hold on. Are you using whitening strips too? Your fangs look good, girl. Really good.
A really charming snake charmer? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
Wait, what? Have you been doing Pilates too?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15%.